a lot of people need a catastrophic failure in their life at some point. When the war kicked off is when the Navy and the Army decided, one, SEALs are a pain in the ass, especially young, fresh SEALs straight out of buds, us included. And this guy was like a bad version of Popeye, covered in tattoos, just crusty as all get out. And as soon as I walked in there and said I wanted to be a SEAL, he was like, you're not SEAL material. He's like, they don't want you.
Yeah.
You understand these guys are like superheroes and you're a runt. I feel like everybody needs, and people won't like to hear this, I feel like everybody, a lot of people, especially type A's, need a catastrophic failure in their life at some point. Because what it will do is it will humble you for the rest of your life. Yeah. I've had a ton of success, and a lot of people are like, wow, you're very humble. Well, yeah, because I got broken from mistakes I made when I was younger that rock bottom, that I had to climb out of that hole and come to grips with, hey, man, you were the cause of your problems. Your ego, your immaturity, all those things contributed to that. And if you don't want to be that again, and you understand that all of us in life are human, we're all going to make mistakes, we're all, then, keeps you humble.
Yeah. A lot of my problems that I had to learn hard lessons for were self-inflicted as well. Yeah. And most of them were from when I was younger, before I'd ever been a part of the, Department of War. I was a troubled youth, and I made a lot of poor decisions, and decisions have consequences. And sometimes those consequences are painful, but I needed to learn those painful lessons to make me into the person that I am today. Yeah. And I've continued to learn lessons. There's definitely been hard lessons, even, into my adult years, that I've had to learn the hard way, because I typically like to run face first into brick walls before I learn that that's painful. For some reason,
you and I love the same leadership style.
I don't know why.
The same learning style.
Yeah. But I mean, when I learn them, it's like, okay, I've got it. Yeah. Got it. That hurt a lot. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to experience that again. And so I'll do things this way now, so I can relate to that, especially when I was younger, because, I had to learn the hard way. I just had to learn the hard way. And I did, and some of it involved law enforcement, and some of it, involved some other painful lessons. But, I always think to myself, I wouldn't change the past that I've experienced, even though I don't like who I was at that time, because I wouldn't be the person I am today, if I didn't experience those things. Agreed. I think it's had a big impact on my personality, my moral compass, my the way that I carry myself, my character. So there's a lot of value in that stuff that I think have been important, and it's been important shaping me, who I am as a man today. So
I agree. I think I've often said the bad things teach us so much more than the success. Yeah. The success is just double down on, even if you're doing things wrong and you're successful, you're going to double down on the path you're on. The screw ups and the pain points are the things that make us take a step back and usually learn from. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, like, painful memories are things that I retain much easier than things I won in, because it's easy for me to forget some of the positive things that I have in my life because I become ungrateful. Yep. Or I become self-centered or selfish. But painful experiences, oh, poor me, or like, oh, why did this happen? Or that was awful. Because human beings are inherently selfish, and I have to actively work not to be. And I'm reminded of that every day, because I continue to make mistakes, and I have to continue to get better, because we're human beings. You're going to keep screwing shit up occasionally here and there. But, I do remember the painful things, because I'm like, whoa, I didn't like how that felt. Let's not do that again. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, I think that the key is, as long as and I've said this a million times probably before, I'm sure people are tired of hearing me say it, but it's like, remain teachable. Yeah. If you can remain teachable, no matter where you're at in your life, whether you're young, you're old, you're middle-aged, like, I think that you'll be okay. I think you'll be okay. Like, at least for me, like, I have to remain teachable, so I can continue to grow and continue to improve upon where I'm at, improve my fighting position. You know what I mean? Fill a sandbag or two, whatever it is, But anyway, so I'd like to get to know a little bit more about your story before service. Where did you grow up?
So I'm originally from Ohio. Go Bucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
A Bucks fan.
Diehard Ohio State fan.
What part of Ohio?
Close to Columbus, a little town called Coshocton, little tiny blip on the map.
Okay. Do you like Skyline chili?
I am, yeah. But I mean, we were young. I was young.
Okay.
So we left. And parents divorced.
Gotcha.
We, at a very young age, that kind of changed the dynamic.
Okay.
And my dad moved to, my dad was still in Ohio for a bit. They moved to Medina. We were in Medina. I bounced back and forth from my mom, who was in Columbus at that point.
Gotcha.
And then my dad moved to North Carolina, and I went with him.
To North Carolina?
Yeah. And then my mom moved to the Virgin Islands, and I started bouncing back and forth between the two of them. My dad went to South Carolina, so I spent some time in South Carolina. I think Georgia for a second.
Where were you in North Carolina?
Down below Fort Bragg.
Oh, really?
Lumberton.
Was your dad in the military?
Yes, my dad was Army, although he was in active duty many years ago. My dad was a airborne instructor and a black hat at Fort Campbell during Vietnam. He never went over to Vietnam.
Gotcha.
It's just kind of one of those things where, hey, we need instructors, so he was an instructor and a rigger.
Okay.
And that's how I found out about the SEAL teams.
Was from your dad?
Yeah, because SEALs all the way up until 2000, including myself, I went through Army Airborne School in 96 after I graduated training. So SEALs went through Airborne School all the way up until the war, until 2001, I'm sorry. When the war kicked off is when the Navy and the Army decided, one, SEALs are a pain in the ass, especially young, fresh SEALs straight out of buds, us included.
Yeah.
And the Army had finally had enough. And I remember I was at SEAL Team 4 like 99, 2000, and it was reverberating around the community that the Army had finally said, enough.
We're tired of you guys.
Yeah. you had to, they were making us send a SEAL to be a black hat instructor or black hat, right? No, Rangers are the black hats. What's the airborne school? Are they red hats?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember. Either way.
They were sending him to become an instructor to teach airborne school.
We had to send a SEAL to be an airborne instructor and also to corral the SEALs straight out of butts.
Okay.
And no one wanted to do it.
Of course
And I remember they picked a guy from SEAL Team 4, and he was the guy that was going in 2000.
How butthurt was he?
Oh, bitter.
Oh, I bet he was so bitter.
Yeah.
Man.
And but when the war happened, everything kind of changed. And the Navy said, hey, you know what? We're going to take our guys over. We're going to run our own program. But back then, 60s, all the way through. So my dad knew who SEALs were.
Yeah.
And he told me when I was young, I'd always wanted to go in the military, fascinated with military. All my family members had served. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather, actually fought with the French in World War II. So
no kidding.
My mom and my whole family was French in World War II. And my grandfather fought with them. After the war, they immigrated to Canada. So my mom didn't even learn English till she was 24 before she came into America and became a naturalized citizen.
Where did she meet your father?
She met, I don't know where she met my dad originally. I can't remember that story. My
Canadian citizen though.
She was in America and had become a naturalized citizen when she met my dad.
Oh, makes sense.
So that had already happened.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I think she was 30 when I was born.
Okay.
Yeah. So, on my, so those were the stories I grew up listening to, my grandfather's stories, which were amazing.
Yeah.
An infantryman with the French.
Yeah.
On my dad's side, my paternal grandfather was a B-24 pilot who flew all through the European theater. All his missions, highly decorated, Distinguished Flying Cross, 7 air medals. I have a newspaper article of when he was shot down in the Coshocton Tribune, where we're from, highlighting him that they had been shot down. I don't know why they didn't jump out. I have no clue. That doesn't really tell that story.
Yeah.
But he crash landed the B-24 in this snowfield in Yugoslavia. and everybody survived. And then they evaded back to Italy, the whole crew.
They got out.
Yeah. So
wow.
he got the DFC for that.
You know that my grandfather's best friend, and funny enough, his name is Jack Friend. He passed away since then. His name was Jack Friend. Dude was an amazing pianist, by the way. Could play the hell out of a piano. Unfortunately, he got that disease that causes your fingers to get really like messed up. I can't remember what it's called, but he was a B-2 pilot in World War II, got shot down, I think over Germany, and got captured as a POW.
Wow.
Spent some time as a POW. You know, I think about that sometimes. And your story about your family explaining that, I'm like, oh man, I hadn't thought about that in such a long time. Man, some of these guys' stories, I wish when I was when I was younger, I'd like had the wherewithal to record these things, because it's like, bro, amazing pieces of history.
Yes,
amazing. And it impacted me hearing those stories as a young boy, you know, and obviously like you hearing the stories impacted you as well. How old were you when you heard that story the first time?
Well, it was told by my dad. And then seeing it, because my grandfather passed away young.
Oh, before
I never
you were born?
got to meet him. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, but I grew up hearing these stories about my grandfather and my dad. I pictures of him and in his army uniform, and you know, I wore that stuff, and pictures of him jumping out of airplanes, and he had an old DRMO parachute that I used to play with as a kid and put the gear on, and then my great uncle was shot down. So my grandfather, who was the B-24 pilot, his brother was a he fought in the Pacific Theater. I don't remember what aircraft he flew, but he was shot down and killed in the Pacific Theater.
Oh,
and I have the letter from Roosevelt, the condolence letter from Roosevelt to the family is at home.
Jeez.
So this is what I grew up like. So from a young age, that's all I wanted to do was be in the military. And
did you know that you wanted to be in like special operations or anything like that? Or
not at first. I wanted to be a pilot like my grandfather. I mean, the first Top Gun came out when I was like 11.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to be Maverick.
I want to be a cool guy like him.
Yeah, I want to be Maverick, man.
Yeah.
But I was also a child of the G.I. Joe generation.
Sure.
And Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow were super cool. Yeah, I was a really good swimmer. I didn't swim competitively, but having lived in the Virgin Islands and all the time I spent in the water down there, and my dad was like, "You're really good in the water. You should check out these guys. They're called Navy SEALs." He said they went through airborne school with me. So I remember researching it in the late 80s. You really couldn't find much. You know, the internet didn't exist. I know people find that hard to believe.
Yeah, but you couldn't just Google images of Navy SEALs.
Yeah, none of that. And I started, what I could find was hardest training in the military, you know, premier maritime special operations unit. And there was a guy in our church. He was the drummer, Ricky. Oh my gosh, I can't think of his last name. But Ricky was a avid special operation fan.
Okay.
And he had collected all kinds of stuff about all branches of special operations. And he actually had articles and magazines about the SEALs. And that was kind of the first time I'd found stuff, and he shared it with me. And yeah, I was probably about 14. I told my dad, I said, that's what I'm going to do. And man, I was a runt. Like, you know, I'm not a big guy. I'm, you know, 5'8", 170, soaking wet these days.
Yeah.
And back then, when I was 14, I was probably 4'11" and about 95. So anyone I said I was going to be a SEAL pretty much laughed me out of the room.
Yeah.
And I wasn't this tough kid. I wasn't this kid that grew up doing martial arts or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I was a kid that was driven, and I said, okay, well, I guess if I want to be a SEAL, I got to start doing hard things. Yeah. So I didn't play any, I played very little sports. I dabbled in a little bit of basketball, figured out I didn't like that. Dabbled in some baseball, figured out I didn't like that. Love football. I love football. Although my dad would never let me play because I was too small.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He was concerned you'd get injured or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but at 14, I don't know, that you know, the little freedom muscles, you know, we're starting to grow.
Yeah.
And I told my dad, I said, I'm going out to the football team. I don't care what you tell me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, 100-pound soaking wet Jason Redman went out for the football team, and thankfully our junior high had a really small football team, and they let me come on.
Did they really?
Yeah, and I got my ass kicked on a regular basis. I remember the very first time, kid by the name of Kevin Lowry. He was either our center or one of the defensive tackles, probably 225, just a thick Lumbee Indian. We had a lot in Lumberton, North Carolina. They had the Lumbee tribe.
Okay.
And he was a member, Lumbee Indian, and I remember, come here, Redman, let me show you what it feels like to get hit. And I was like, Roger that, let's go. And I got down. He hit me so hard, he knocked all the snot out of me. It literally like cleared the blue snot all over myself.
Oh my God.
Saw stars. But I knew that I couldn't back down. I had to get back up. They were like, you ready to do it again? I was like, yep. So I was never a star player. I learned a lot about both taking a beating and also being on a team and trying to contribute where I could. The next year I went out for the wrestling team. I started wrestling, and go figure, once again, I learned how to take a beating because our state champion, I wrestled at 112, and our state champion and his brother wrestled 119 and 112, and his brother was like an alternate state champion. So the two guys I wrestled day in and day out were North Carolina state champions. They whooped my ass.
Oh, Jesus.
But once again, it was, okay, well, hey, this is good. This is teaching me to be hard. This is teaching me to take a beating, which I figured this is good.
Yeah.
So I just drove forward and worked out, and those were the things that I did. And I was smart enough. My family was a little dysfunctional.
Whose family isn't dysfunctional is the real question.
Well, we were probably more dysfunctional than others, and unfortunately started butting heads. I had left my mom. My mom was living in Florida at that point.
Okay.
And I was with my dad in North Carolina and was really starting to butt heads with him. My oldest sister had been kicked out the year prior. And I ended up getting myself kicked out at 17, right at the very beginning of my senior year.
What did she get kicked out for?
Same thing, for butting heads and just
general disagreements.
Yeah, my dad and stepmom were pretty strict, and so we kind of pushed back against that a decent amount.
Like you talking about like curfews and stuff like that, or
all of the above. Yeah,
okay,
yeah. We were a very strong Christian family. I didn't always. I pushed back against that at times, and the whole thing. So all of it led to me getting kicked out. It was about that same time. I remember I went to the recruiting station and told the Navy I want to join and be a SEAL. I was all of 115, maybe 120 at most.
How old were you?
Probably 16.
Okay, so you at 16, you went to the Navy recruiter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I knew I could enlist at 17 with a parent signature.
Oh,
and the recruiter that was in that office at that time in Lumberton, North Carolina, was this salty old boatswain's mate. And as a Marine, the boatswain's mates. For anybody out there who doesn't know a boatswain's mates are the sailor's sailor in the Navy.
The sailor's sailor.
Yeah. They are, and this guy was like Popeye, like a bad version of Popeye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And covered in tattoos, just crusty as all get out. And as soon as I walked in there and said I wanted to be a SEAL, he was like, you're not SEAL material. He's like, they don't want you.
Yeah.
You understand these guys are like superheroes and you're a runt. He's like, get out of here and stop wasting my time. He said, if you actually want to do something in the Navy that you can do, come back and talk to me later. So I would come back again like the next month, and this guy would chase me out of there. So finally I got irritated, and the Army was watching this happen. All the recruiters were in the same little common area.
Same building?
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the Army recruiters was like, hey man, I heard you want to be a SEAL. How'd you like to be an Army Ranger? And I was like, well, I'm familiar with the Rangers, maybe I could do that instead.
Yeah.
So I decided to go down that path, and, went to did everything to get me set up to become an Army Ranger, went to MEPS, and they disqualified me for the airborne physical because when I was a kid, I had ruptured my eardrum and they had rebuilt it.
Oh.
So when the doctor looked in there, they saw scar tissue and they just automatically assumed I couldn't equalize. So they disqualified.
Oh, wow.
So the Army was like, well, you don't have to be an airborne ranger. You can do something else. And I was like, no, that's not it. That ship doesn't sail, man. Yeah. I'm going to leave and I'm going to figure something else out. So it actually was a blessing in disguise. I knew I had dove in the Virgin Islands. I knew I could equalize. Yeah. So I had to go to an ENT, get him to look at it, clear me. I had a letter at this point. This probably took 6 months. I'm now, turning 17 or so. Or maybe I was already 17 because I wouldn't have been able to do MEPS.
Okay.
But took that back. And at that time, there was a new recruiter in the Navy office by the name of Petty Officer Henry Horn.
Henry Horn.
So
you went back to the Navy office.
I saw him and he said, hey man, I was going back to the Army, but Henry Horn was like, hey man, I know who you are. You're the young kid that wants to be a SEAL. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, come on, let me help you. And man, Henry Horn walked me through, told me everything I needed to do to get to SEAL training. And I owe my career to Henry Horn. Several years ago, I've been looking for him for years.
Shout out to Henry Horn.
Yeah, big shout out to, I think he finished as a chief. So Chief Horn, big shout out to you. But I met him. He lives outside Raleigh, North Carolina.
No kidding.
And I went and had dinner with him. I brought him a signed copy of my book. And I just said, thank you, man. I would not be here if it wasn't for you.
That's freaking cool. How did you track him down?
I was doing a big podcast. And I think it was the Sean Ryan show.
Okay.
And someone reached out to me and said, hey, man, I know Henry Horn. I'd like to connect you with him. And that's freaking how I got cool, connected. Man. Yeah.
See that? So there's a lot of negative sides to social media, as we all know. But that right there is one of the positive sides. Yes. Reconnecting people. I think that's super valuable.
There's one other one out there. I'm going to bring it up for every podcast. It was my creative writing teacher in high school who I never would have written any books, or I never would have written if it wasn't for her, Mrs. Martin.
Mrs. Martin?
My creative writing teacher from Boca High, Mrs. Martin, who created a lifetime love of writing and poetry. Miss Martin, I probably never would have started writing about this journey I walked if it hadn't been for your class.
So if Mrs. Martin sees this video by random chance, please, or if somebody knows Mrs. Martin, who is a creative writing teacher, please
she was a creative writing teacher in Florida, and the last I heard, she went to Canada.
Went to Canada?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anybody out there knows her, tell us in the comments so we can forward that information over to Jason.
I would appreciate it.
Yeah.